Good evening. I'm joining you tonight as your Premier and fellow Albertan to talk to you about an issue that is critical to our province and country. Owing to decades of failure and inaction by successive federal governments, Albertans are unable to transport much of the oil that we produce to market through modern, well-regulated pipelines. As a result, we must sell our oil at a discounted price. In the last few weeks, this price gap has reached historic highs because we are producing considerably more product than there is transport capacity. This is creating a huge backlog and forcing the price of our oil to ridiculously low levels. We are essentially giving away our oil for free. Roughly speaking, while everyone else around the world is able to sell their oil for $50 a barrel, we in Alberta are selling for $10 a barrel. This is not sustainable. Now, over the last 2 years, Alberta has climbed out of a deep recession. Our economy is growing again, and jobs are returning. But this price gap threatens that recovery, and it must be addressed. And let me be clear. To those Canadians listening from outside Alberta tonight, this is not just about its impact on Alberta's recovery. It is about the economic well-being of the entire country. So far, the Government of Alberta is acting on several fronts, which I will describe in a moment. But let me start with what we all know to be true. Our energy resources belong to us, to each and to every Albertan. They are our natural inheritance, defended by those who came before and handed down to us in trust. We have a duty to defend these resources, protecting them for our children and our children's children. So let me tell you how we are doing that. First, we are not letting up on our fight to build new pipelines. Over the last 3 years, I have carried that fight to every corner of the country. And I'm pleased to say that a strong and growing majority of Canadians support new pipelines. Billions of dollars that should be going to create jobs and support schools and hospitals are being lost. Most fair-minded Canadians understand that this is fiscal and economic insanity. And I can promise you, our fight will not end until it's won. Second, we must take long overdue steps to upgrade and refine our energy products here at home. My whole life in this province, I have heard conversation after conversation about how we don't get enough value and jobs from our oil and gas. When I became Premier, I knew that we had to take action so that our grandchildren would not be having that same conversation 30 years from now. So we did. Right now, for example, just north of Edmonton, a new upgrading plant is being built by thousands of Alberta workers that will turn Alberta gas into upgraded products. But we can and we must do more. 2 weeks ago, I announced a Made in Alberta upgrading strategy that provides new support to industry and to build more plants and upgrade more product. Interest has been overwhelming. People are eager to invest. And I will have more to say about that in the coming weeks. Third, over the medium term, we must take action to clear the backlog and keep it cleared in order to get our oil to market one way or another. This is key. As I speak, many companies in Alberta's energy sector face a cash flow crisis that threatens thousands of jobs. That's not acceptable to me. And that is why, earlier this week, I announced that the province of Alberta is acquiring upwards of 7,000 new rail cars to transport our oil. This new rail capacity will start coming online next year. And when it does, we will get a higher price for our product. And to those who oppose new pipelines and want to hurt Alberta workers by stopping them, you might want to think about that the next time you are held up at a rail crossing. So for the long term, we are fighting for new pipelines and investing in more upgrading. And for the medium term, we are buying new rail cars to provide additional certainty. However, with the price gap at historic highs, that still leaves us with a short-term problem that must be fixed. Many companies and market analysts have called for a temporary reduction in the amount of oil we produce to stabilize the market and increase the price of our oil. 2 weeks ago, I appointed 3 envoys to meet with energy leaders to work on short-term solutions. They've reported back that there isn't agreement among producers on any kind of voluntary solution. And so we are left with a very difficult decision, whether to impose a short-term curtailment in production that is aimed at stabilizing the market and protecting jobs, or whether to watch from the sidelines and hope for the best. In making this decision, I'm reminded that when confronted with serious threats to our jobs and industry in the past, governments have used their authority to defend our province. And let me pause here for a moment just to thank the other parties in our legislature, in particular the Alberta Party and the UCP, for their constructive and thoughtful contributions to this discussion. This issue transcends partisan politics. And so, after listening carefully to industry leaders, to experts, and to Albertans, here's what I've decided to do. Beginning on January 1st, the province of Alberta will mandate an across-the-board reduction of 325,000 barrels per day in production, or roughly 8.7%. I want to be clear, this is a short-term measure, and over the course of the year, the curtailment amount will drop. This is being done through regulation and ministerial order. We will review the amount every month and will adjust as needed so as to not reduce production more than is necessary. In addition, experts throughout the industry will work with us and the Alberta Energy Regulator to refine the rules as needed to make sure there are no unintended consequences. And we will implement specific measures to make sure that our smallest producers are treated fairly. Now, let me say, in Alberta, we believe that markets are the best way to set prices. But when markets aren't working, when companies are forced to sell our resources for pennies on the dollar, then we have a responsibility to act, a responsibility to defend our province and to defend our resources. By spreading the curtailment in a careful way among all producers, industry and investors can be assured that the curtailment is short-term and will gradually decrease while the price per barrel slowly recovers. As such, jobs will be protected. So, to recap, over many years, successive governments in Ottawa have failed to build new pipelines. This is now resulting in a historically low price for the oil produced here in Alberta. We are giving it away for next to nothing. This is hurting jobs and could hurt Alberta's economic recovery. In the short term, we are therefore curtailing production to raise the price and protect jobs. In the medium term, we are buying new rail cars to clear the backlog, keep it cleared, and stabilize the market. But my fellow Albertans, if we are going to solve this problem once and for all, the low-price era must end, and a high-value era must begin. We have to diversify our energy sector, open new markets, and get more value and more jobs from the resources that we all own and will give to our children. We face a difficult challenge, but I can promise you that in confronting this challenge, we will draw on the best traditions of our province and on the values that we share: compassion, community, and the recognition that at the end of the day, we are all in this together. Those values built this province, and they keep us moving forward. Let me assure you, we will never back down in our fight to protect our jobs, our resources, and our province. And I will never stop fighting for Alberta, fighting for Canada, and fighting for you. Thank you, and good night.
Premier, you called this a very difficult decision, but the way you've laid it out sounds like it's pretty straightforward. Why is it so difficult then?
Well, it's difficult because obviously, as you know, there's not consensus within the industry, so that makes it a challenge. And as well, one never wants to begin by, reaching into the market and telling people that they have to produce less. That's not the way it should work. If things were working the right way, if we had enough pipeline capacity, if we had managed to build pipelines to more than one market, and if we had more ability to upgrade our product here. So it's not the outcome that is best for our economy, but it is the outcome that is best in the face of the alternative right now.
You mentioned the Alberta Party and the official opposition, UCP. Did the fact that they were calling for a production cutback make it easier for you to make today's decision?
Well, I think, as I said, we really appreciate their contribution, and we appreciate that. I think that they've been making it a fairly nonpartisan issue. It was also very helpful to get the advice of the envoys, to get input from a broad range of people within the industry, and also from many, many experts in oil and energy economics and policy, because brought together, we got to this point where we think this is the best way forward.
Premier, we've heard that these trains will be online by the end of 2019, I think, right? Won't the Line 3 be online by then, exporting about 760,000 barrels a day, I believe? So what would be the need for the trains if the Line 3 is online? Because surely that would take care of the bottleneck.
No, because what happens is, Line 3 is already moving about half or a little bit more than half of the amount that you just identified. And so Line 3 does definitely relieve the pressure when it comes on, but with the current projected increases in production, it will only clear the market for a few months. And then with the delay that we now have in place with TMX, we would find ourselves right back in the situation that we're in right now. And that's what the rail is for, is to deal with at least the delay that we've seen thus far with TMX. And so that's where it helps. And of course, it also helps with respect to just having more flexibility should there be any other challenges with respect to pipelines.
Follow-up. Have you had any discussions with the Prime Minister since you proposed this rail purchase? And will you be talking to him in Montreal on next Saturday or Friday?
No, I haven't had any conversations with him in the last few days. We will be raising it when we are in Ottawa or in Montreal, absolutely. As I've said before, this is a critically important matter for Canada's economy, not just Alberta's economy. There are a number of jobs that are potentially at stake in Alberta, but it's not just Alberta jobs. It's investment into Canada as a whole, and it deserves attention. And as you know, we've asked the federal government to consider supporting our investment in the rail, and we will keep pushing that.
Good evening, Premier. You talked about the advice from the envoys and the other parties, but I'm wondering, what was it that you saw or that you heard that convinced you that this step was necessary at this point?
Well, I think it's the whole thing. It was seeing oil sell for $10 a barrel when you can't. When everyone else is getting 50. It was seeing the uncertainty that was creating within the oil and gas industry in Alberta, their inability to predict and to plan for the future. It was seeing what it was likely to do to ongoing investment into the sector, not only for the short term, but for the medium term as well. We need to be able to show investors that this resource that we have and this product that we have to sell to the rest of the world, that they can sell it. And so we need to be able to demonstrate, as I've said, both the short, medium, and long-term plan to ensure that we are able to act as smart, sophisticated players on an international economic stage where we have every right to do well.
And how are you going to gauge success?
Well, I think there's a lot of things. We'll be watching it and analyzing it. We'll be looking at what happens to the price of oil. We'll be talking with our industry stakeholders. As you would know, through the AER, the AER will also sort of serve as a forum for experts to engage with industry representatives to ensure that there's no unintended consequences and that the process is working the way it should be. And then we'd be tweaking it on a monthly basis. So all these things will work together to demonstrate whether it's successful. Of course, we have to measure it against the speculation of what would have been in the absence of our intervention. But I think we all know that we've had some ridiculous differentials over the last 2 months, and there's really no relief in sight.
Hello, Premier. How concerned are you about job cuts due to this reduction that you are mandating?
Well, of course, we're always keeping an eye on it because, as you know, generally speaking, jobs have been increasing in Alberta over the last year, and the economy has been growing, and so we don't want to stop that momentum. But what we knew was that momentum was slowing already because of this differential, and so our best guess is that this intervention will provide the kind of predictability and stability to industry players to allow them to keep people on because they can see a light at the end of the tunnel. And so we are hoping that it will have a neutral to positive impact on jobs going forward.
Okay, and you praised the nonpartisanship of the opposition parties. How partisan are you being by announcing an 8.7% cut while the opposition, the UCP, had asked for 10%?
That has nothing to do with partisanship. It had to do with simply getting the best evidence and the best information on the number of barrels that we needed to reduce in order to get the outcome that we're looking for.
Good evening, Premier. Just wondering if this targets any region or if it's really more across the province, and as well different levels of producers, different sizes, maybe smallers versus the bigger producers.
So the mandate will affect all producers. It's on an operator basis. So larger producers will have the ability to move between facilities and figure it out in the best way that works for them. We have set out a 10,000 barrel exemption for all producers. So obviously, if you're a small producer, the value of that exemption is greater for them than it is for the larger producers. But we think that this is a good way to allow for the flexibility that's needed and that exists within industry to accommodate these changes.
Hi, Premier. What kind of opposition are you expecting from some of the large producers that don't like this idea? And what do you say to them that when they say, why are you forcing us to abandon a benefit to us at this point?
Well, I'm not sure exactly. We know that they are concerned about. We won't be surprised, obviously, if they articulate that they are concerned about. What we have done is we have engaged in what I think was a pretty open process. We listened to them. This process that we've gone through adjust to some degree to some of the representations that they made to us. Obviously not all of them because they didn't want us to act at all. But there are features of what we've done that reflect our conversations with them. The fact that it's on a shorter term basis probably will be welcome to them. And, you know, at the end of the day, though, in most cases, those producers, not all, but in most cases, those producers who are in this position will be in a position where they're earning what they expected to earn. So they might not be earning as much as they were, but they were earning, they will be earning what they expected to earn when they made the investments in the first place.
Premier, if this doesn't give you the bump that you're hoping to get, are you prepared to do deeper production cuts next year?
Well, I think that next year is not really the issue because next year we have Line 3 come on, and the issue really is
I'm talking
about...
the spring, whatever.
Oh, I see, like in 3 months.
Next year's only a month away.
Oh, I see. Okay, I thought you meant
Well,
next
it starts
fiscal.
in January.
Right, sorry. Okay. You know what, I think, I don't want to speculate right now. What we have a fairly good sense of what we need to do to clear the market and to clear storage, and that's what this plan is designed to do. Obviously, we will tweak it. That's the point of having the monthly adjustments and having the forum through the AER to evaluate both how it's working, any unintended consequences, as well as the degree of enforcement and how well it's being followed. So, you know, we'll keep a very close eye on it. We have a very capable agency that's very well equipped to do just that work.
And with no further questions from media, that concludes the program. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.